So next we have a keynote upcoming, and unless you've been hiding in a cave for the last 5 to 6 years, you probably all know Pierre Gronlier, so as Gaia-X CTO. He's been working in the IT industry for, I think, around 12 years or so, working on real-time communication, scaling systems and everything, and that you probably know. What you don't know is that he has also been into belly dancing, if I understood that correctly, and somebody told me that you have been renovating your house, so there's truly a multi-talent at this stage. And, well, yeah, so with that having said, I'd like to ask the inventor of Data Doesn't Flow on Rainbows on the stage for a keynote. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Everything Ralph said is true. Thank you very much for being here today. We have a huge rooms. I would like to take this opportunity also to make this event a bit more vivid. So we will have time for Q&A. We will have time for networking. Please ask your questions. We are really here to make sure that data flow on services, not rainbows. And without further ado, I will start the keynote. There is some slides. Some of the slides are a bit technical, but that's called Tech-X. So I'm expecting people also, if you don't follow up, to ask questions. We are here for that. And maybe also to restate where we are, Gaia-X. All the slides are almost new. Gaia-X, it's a non-profit association. We are registered in Belgium. We were created in 2021. That's the 4th year. Even if the project was created way before it was officially registered. We are now entering the 4th year, and very happy. We have about 20, 25 people, I think, in the staff, and that's stable and growing. In terms of organization, we have 3 committees. Why do I spend some time maybe talking about the organization? Because it does have impact on our deliverable. We have 3 committees. We have the Data Space Business Committee, collecting business requirement. Again, that's extremely important to understand why you need Gaia-X, what do you expect from Gaia-X. Then we have the Policy Rules Committee that translate those business requirements into rules, criteria. And finally, we have the Technical Committee that operationalize those requirements. I'm saying that because something happened also recently inside the organization. Before, we had 3 committees, and not necessarily everything was fully in sync. Thanks to the arrival of Ulrich 6 months ago, a significant change was made, and now the 3 committees are all reporting to the same management team, reporting to the board. There is one Gaia-X roadmap, and that change alone in the organization helped a lot to align the deliverable and to make a consistency of deliverable between each of the committees. It does have impact on the architecture, on our capacity to deliver, on the source code, and that thinks that even if this is a bit boring about organizational changes, that's a major impact on our deliverable and our capacity to answer your needs. But because, again, Gaia-X is an association, and we are living thanks to you. Member-driven organization, we need you to express your requirement. We need your contribution. That's the only thing about organization. Then about Gaia-X mission statements. Trusted decentralized digital ecosystems, not necessarily just data spaces. Data spaces is one, I will say, flavor of an ecosystem, based on European values. And then we developed a set of policies, specification, and a verification framework. It does include source code. So if I highlight a few keywords, data doesn't flow on rainbows. I had to put that picture in. It means that for the ecosystems, when we talk about ecosystem, it does include data and services. You don't monitor the data. You monitor the services that are exposing, transferring, processing the data. You don't set access control on the data. You set access control on the services which is exposing the data. The data doesn't copy itself out of the blue, out of thin air. You need to have services that copy data. Again, when we talk about architecture, blueprints, building blocks, please be careful as technical experts in the audience to look for the services. You want to have a contract, you want to have a law of obligation, an agreement. Look for where are the data located, where are the services that will process, store, transfer your data located. European value, I'm not going to read my slides, but basically a lot of self-determination, openness, transparency, and data protection are key elements as part of the European values. And here it's important that's not about European regulation. Those values are being shared worldwide. We have colleagues here from Japan, and we work with them. We have exchange. There is the data free flow, data with free flow with trust. That is happening, a cooperation between Japan and the European Commission. We do share similar values. It's not about the regulation. And then about the last part, set of policy specification verification framework. To make it short, we have two main documents. A document that is being called the Gaia-X compliance document. And this document is technology agnostic. That's the set of rules. And we have another documents, that with an S, so that part of the document about identity, data exchange, that will be about the Gaia-X architecture document, a set of documents together. And those documents are rule agnostic, meaning that you could use one without necessarily using the other. It will be a bit weird to use the technology agnostic without having an engine to implement that, but we'll come to that later. Few elements. For the one that were in Gaia-X before, you might have heard the wording like trust framework document, PRCD document, that's being combined together into one document, the compliance document. And that was possible because of this organizational restructuration. So that's also a simplification of our deliverable. We don't have a lot of document anymore. We have two main documents to look after, compliance, which is the merge of, again, trust framework document 2210 for the people familiar with the versionings, and PRCD document. And for the architecture documents, that does include data exchange, identity credential access management, and the ontology for the references. When we talk about those documents, how do they interact with each other? There is always this question, am I compliant with Gaia-X? Am I compatible with Gaia-X? The European Commission has come up with three nice layers of interoperability, which are legal interoperability, organizational interoperability, semantic, and technical interoperability. Those are not from Gaia-X. Those are being reused by Gaia-X, the terminology, the semantics here. And you can find more information as part of the European Interoperability Framework document. The compliance document takes care about the organizational and semantic interoperability. That's about the rules. And the architecture document takes care about the technical interoperability. Gaia-X, two additional information. If you only use the Gaia-X architecture, you will not be Gaia-X compliant, you will be Gaia-X technically compatible. The Gaia-X compliance, that's the compliance document, that will be about the rules. And about the legal interoperability, that's out of scope. That will be left for policymakers and sovereign people. I think you use the word kings and president and so on. That will be left for them. We have enough to already work on the three other layers. To give you an example about the difference between technical and semantic organization layers. I know that's a bit weird. Who can spot the differences between those two certificates? Yeah. Well, you have one certificate on that side, left, right side. With that certificate, it's an X509 certificate. Technically speaking, all the library can read that. From a semantic and organizational point of view, that mean different things. The one on the right, that's my EIDAS certificate. There is no private key here. I can sign documents, and those documents I will sign with that, we have a legally binding force. The one on the left is something I generated locally on my local computer. So technically speaking, a library, a data connector, a data platform might be technically compatible with each other because they use the same X509 or JSON, YAML, XML type of formatting. But they carry a different meaning, and that's what is Gaia-X compliance about. That's the difference between the technical interoperability and the organizational interoperability. Do I recognize your certificate because this certificate has the same meaning, the same force in front of the law? Back to those two documents. I have 3 slides that summarize Gaia-X, so I hope let me know if that was condensed enough. We have the Gaia-X compliance document. This Gaia-X compliance document is based on a standard from the ISO in terms of wording. That's called the CASCO, conformity assessment. And for each of those conformity assessments, we have criteria. And those criteria are being split in three elements. The claim, what needs to be said, claimed. The evidence, what type of proof do you need to bring to validate your claim, and who is signing that claim. That's all. Gaia-X compliance, 4 assessment schemes that will be described later. For each assessment scheme, a list of criteria, and for each criteria, 3 things to remember. What needs to be said? Which evidence do I need to bring to prove what I'm just saying? And who is signing it? For the Gaia-X architecture, that's even simpler. That will be just the 2 bullet points in blue. The Gaia-X architecture principles that based on verifiable credentials and linked data. Everything else could be considered as a dependency of those 2 elements. And on that, I'm quite proud that when we started Gaia-X, we had no idea how to create a data space. 4 years later, when you ask around, all data space implementation, not necessarily with the same format, again, technically speaking, we still have some works to converge, but every data space is using somewhere a type of token that are being signed, equivalent to a credential, and linked data to represent interaction between participant, data set, product, and services. This is becoming a de facto standard. And here, I think that Gaia-X made it successful. We managed to promote that idea that to build a data space decentralized, without locking, without lockout, at scale, cheap, resilient, use of linked data and verifiable credentials was a good choice. Catena-X, Iona-X, Pontus-X, AgData Hub, all used something related to those technology. And we are working together to make that converging. Linked data, to make it work, yes, you need to have serialization format. You need to know exactly how you will verify that my JSON dictionary has the proper field. What is the format of my field? Is that a string, in Boolean, and date? Date in which format? Date, month, year, month, date, and so on. Those are technical dependency of how do I express and use linked data. Verifiable credentials. The type of signature. How do I serialize that? A credential itself is not new. You have credentials way before in XML. Signing things is not something new. But we do agree there are updates and new protocols how to make it work more efficiently. How do you issue them? How do you present them? Using, for example, OpenID Connect. DITCOM, again, different protocol. Even before we had CAPI, the European Commission worked on that a long time ago. Your COVID password, my team told me yesterday, that was, I think, based on MDoc, which is 10 years old specs. How do you publish those credentials? How do you search for them? Those are dependency, the fact that we have a registry and so on. Those are just dependency of those 2 key elements from the architecture, the use of linked data, the use of verifiable credentials. Everything can be, in fact, linked back to those. When we took that 2 documents, when we take those 2 documents, we can implement something. And that's where the clearinghouse come into the picture. So the clearinghouse, that's a fully open source implementation. The license of that implementation, that's the Eclipse public license 2. And you can audit, you can reuse this source code. This source code, again, we are working on that, but that will be rule agnostic soon. So you can use that to maybe implement your own rules. And we welcome contribution, we welcome feedback. Technical event, the compliance, most of it is done in Java and TypeScript. It's based on microservices and library. So if you want to implement or deploy a clearinghouse, you don't have to pull a lot of dependency. You don't need a Kubernetes cluster. You can run just Docker run on a local computer that works. The library, you don't need necessarily to instantiate a new component by itself. You can just take the library, integrate that into your existing source code, and make it work. And the rules that we are using are adopted worldwide. So we started with Europe, EIDAS for the rules, so that the compliance part, but we do increase the scope of those rules and national trust service provider. And the last slide about the Gaia-X architecture, that's a summary of all the content. For the compliance document, we have 4 assessment schemes. conformity, Gaia-X label level 1, Gaia-X label level 2, Gaia-X label level 3, each of them increasing their requirement as you go forward on the ladder. And for the Gaia-X architecture, once you understand that everything is a credential that is represented by this small icon with the stamp and the label on it, basically the information model, the very simplified version of the information model is the following. You have a service offering, which is an aggregation maybe of other different service offerings. It's composed of resources, or the difference between an aggregation and a composition, that's the aggregation. It cannot live without it. The composition, you can live without that, meaning that a house doesn't exist if you don't have the rooms. So you remove the rooms from the house disappears. The resources is something that can live on its own on the side. So services are aggregated together, and they are composed by resources that itself can be aggregation of it. And with that nested model, you can go as deeply as you want. From your data services, from your data product, the policy rules attached to that data product that is being exposed through a data connector. The data connector may be replicated on different network area. You will have a load balancer. Load balancer can be on a DNS or an application load balancer. The load balancer can be hosted on a VM, the VM on a bare metal, the bare metal on a data center that be connected to an interconnection point. With that model, you can basically describe everything. And to make that happen inside the catalog, you need to have these thin additional blocks, which are a request and an agreement. How does that link to the other initiatives? The service offering, that's compatible with the TM Forum fireware. That will be equivalent to a product. The ODL agreement, that's exactly the same thing that you have inside the IDSA data space protocol. And all the description that I've made from the high-level data product down to the bare metal data center, that's the thing that you'll see also in different initiatives as SBON software bill of material, and it does include infrastructure and infra. So with those 3 slides, basically you have Gaia-X overall. Now starts the fun. How does it work? And a deep dive for the hacking session on how that works. So we took those assessment criteria, conformity assessment scheme, the 4 of them. We translated that into software that will be stored inside something that we call the ecosystem rulebooks, if I want to use the same vocabulary that is being used at the Data Space Support Center, or the Gaia-X registry, same thing. There is a policy enforcement engine, PDP, for the one that are familiar with the XML specification, or the compliance engine. Basically, the compliance engine, that's something that takes the rules, the input that are signed attestation that you can extract from PDFs, and then output another signed attestation saying, yes, no, all the rules have been validated. It's very simple. A set of rules, input, output. Each of those arrows, each of those building blocks here have implementation. So we do have specification for each of those blocks. You see that you have a lot of references here to the W3C specification, JSON LD, Shackle, Sparkle, W3C, the use of OpenID Connect, VC issuance, so VCI, VC issuance, OpenID Connect verifiable presentation, and the use of wallet, sometimes called agent, depending if there is a human interaction or not human interaction. And then the last part, which is in dotted lines, is the services that enables you to publish, to advertise that on the network. So the clearinghouse, that's basically those 3 services back together. And we call that, if you allow me for today, the Gaia-X core, the clearinghouse core services. And there are different releases of those services. The very first one was Elbe in the early of 2022. Then we had Tagus, the one that we are going to use today, the one that is operated today through the clearinghouse. The one that we are working on with a team that will be released for general availability at the summit this year is the Gaia-X Loire release. And next year, we even have starts to work on the Danube one. So release cycle, very standard process for software development. We package that as clearinghouse core services, Docker images, nothing really fancy either here. Again, everything open source. You can look at the source code. You can audit, reuse, open merge request, contribute to that. What is the role of the clearinghouse then? That's basically to offer those services and build additional services on top of that, a marketplace, a wallet. Since I mentioned that we use credentials, we use keys. How do you rotate your key? How do you revoke your key? How do you retrieve it in case you lost it? You lose it. Do you want to have a mobile wallet, a cloud wallet, and so on? Those are services that will not be provided by Gaia-X Association. That's not our expertise. That's what we said. Ulrich said that we need to partner with others. We don't build data space ourselves. We work with others. Our core job is to provide this way to translate governance rules into machine-readable execution and execute it. And then the clearinghouse provider can build additional services on top of that. And finally, I will take some time to talk about a demonstration that you can use today to get your first credential. That's something that you can scan and use. That will be your Gaia-X membership credential. So it does work if you are a Gaia-X member. It was a lot of work by the CTO team that I will ask in a minute to join me on stage so that you can recognize them, and also maybe we can thank them, applaud them for their hard work and dedication to that project. Basically, what they've done is to take a specification which is a draft 13 from the OpenID Connect Foundation, and plug everything together, because there is a huge work needs to be done between a high-level slide when I say, hey guys, let's all use OpenID Connect and SSI. Great. How to make it work? It was a lot of weeks of hard work, because you need to take care about the API. Are the API compatible? Do they work? How do I hook them? How do I deploy them? My credential, which format of the credential? There are extensions. How do I serialize that? Which key do I use? RSA, elliptic curve, which type of elliptic curve? Where do I find the wallet? Do I need to test wallets? How many wallets are claimed to be compatible with OpenID Connect? How many of them are re-implementing the latest version of the draft? So for all that hard work, I would like to ask maybe the CTO team that I see maybe sitting here, and I think that we have others maybe. Yes, here, you, to come me on stage so you can see and recognize their faces. Applaud them for their hard work. If you have any question, those are the ladies and gentlemen behind the CTO team. Yeah, thanks for joining. We have one other person which is remote for a medical issue, couldn't join. But they deserve, yes, a lot of recognition. That's basically the data space craftsmen and ladies that are building and making that possible today. So if you have any question during the event, during the hackathon, after the event, those are the go-to persons. Thanks a lot, guys, and Judita. Any question? We have a bit time in front of us. A bit of time in front of us. You don't want to take... Well, we have nice shirts with flowers, so you can even chase him afterwards. That's OK. No question? Then maybe I hand over the microphone. We follow with the agenda. We stay in the room. We have 2 days event. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to make sure that we move from the slides to the source code and help you. And it's also very important that we get feedback from you. What do you expect from this event? How we can help you? Gaia-X will be as successful as its member. Thanks.